All right, y'all. Now we're ready to rock and roll. All right, so we're going to finish up our last lesson in values. Primarily, what we're looking in terms of values is the macro, the big picture, the big shapes. And so we're going to talk about the silhouettes. Okay, and in the silhouettes, what we're looking at is revealing the foreground and background value relationships. Primarily, what you're going to be dealing with is a dark object on a light background or a light object on a dark background. It's very, very simple, but when you stop to acknowledge it, it will give you really important information in terms of the story. And then you also have sometimes a combination of the two, which again plays into the story. Okay, so we select our image. Now, normally we would we would desaturate all these, but I'm not going to desaturate them all because I want you just to be able to look at the painting as it is, and the foreground and background are obvious, at least in the examples that I have, so we don't need to desaturate them. So what we want to look for is what is the background to foreground relationship. So in this case, we have a little boy. He's dressed in his pajamas, right? And he's a light figure, and he's behind this, in front of this dresser, which is a dark figure or a dark background. And that creates this juxtaposition or this contrast that allows him to be silhouetted and communicates clearly to us that he's the subject. And both, if you look at him as a light foreground on a dark background, then the dresser itself is dark, but it's also then on a light background. Okay, so you have this repetition that's going on there. Obviously, in this picture, the dark background, the structure, the verticals, the horizontals, it represents his father, because he discovered that his dad is Santa Claus. And when we're doing the assignment, what I want you to do is really, really simple. Let me get my annotation tools. You could do something as simple as this. Let's see how I want to do this. Here's your piece of paper. Okay. And you could just do something like dark background. Boom. Make sense? Because what we're trying to do is really just kind of get that big overall pattern, which from a distance, as you walk into a gallery, and you see that painting across the room, this is what you'd be looking at. You could even go a little further if you wanted to. But you don't have to. It's not really important, but just for the heck of it. It probably is going to be a little bit more like that if you wanted to get more accurate on it. Okay. So let me get rid of this. The next possibility is to have a dark figure on a light background. And obviously in this case, she's the girl's dressed in this dark outfit. She's like a little farmer girl. But she's putting on this white dress to see if she looks so pretty and witty. And And so here you're telling this story because you have this dark figure on a light background. Okay. It's really basic, but it really allows you to get clarity very quickly in these images. And here would be a combination of it. So you have the one guy who's a dark figure on a light background, and then you have the guy dressed in white against a dark background. Okay. You have the dog down here. He's a light figure on a dark background. You have this guy in the background over here, where he becomes a dark figure on a light background, and these guys become dark figures on a light background as well. Okay. The little boy, he's just observing. He's not playing the game, and so therefore he kind of blends into the surroundings. His pants are dark on a dark background. His shirt is white on a light background. His head is dark on a dark background, and so therefore, if you squint your eyes, he almost totally disappears. Actually, he does disappear because he's just observing. Very interesting. So let me unmute y'all's. Unmute. And we are going to go through a couple demos, okay? And what I want you to do is to use the under the draw tool, you're going to use, there's 3 rectangles in the center column. Use the one at the bottom and use black or white and just kind of off on the side. Or if you want, in this case, you could do something like this. You had a light figure here. This was light over here. You know, you might come out. You might do something like that, okay?
Wow.
Does that make sense? And actually, I think he had some dark over there like that. And I think there was that white dog at the bottom. You could, if you wanted to, put it in there. Okay. So, demos. Julie, since I see your face, what I'd like you to do is if you want, you can do the little box thing or just articulate what the relationship is, dark to light. And then more importantly, after you do that, I'd like you to attempt to read it. Why is it important that she's separated from the background?
So I think that's pretty much the pattern.
Yeah.
And she is very much the center of interest as she studies her reflection in the mirror and the beauty magazine on her knees. And probably the makeup beside her. I think she's having her first go at making up her face.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite Rockwell paintings. Because when you go back and analyze it even more, it's really cool, especially when you get into the arabesques and you realize like she's kind of throwing this thing away and she's picking up that, you know, she's putting down the kid toys and picking up the little lady things. Mm-hmm. Okay. Where is annotations and clear? Good job. Cool. Bill.
Yes.
What's the relationship? Is it a dark foreground on a light background, a light foreground on a dark background, a combination of it?
Well, you have a combo. Do I press the rectangle button? Is that what I press?
Yeah, under the draw tool.
And then I put it black.
Well, you might use the
How do I
just
get
use
it?
the white. Just use the white of the background of the screen,
Okay.
and then
How do I get it to open up? Like the way Julie did.
Just click on the screen and go diagonally, and it will give you a square
Oh, okay.
once you've selected the tool.
I got you. Okay. So,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Well, and again, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. So we go here.
if you want to use the highlighter tool, Bill, you could do that too, and then you can just kind of like draw your
yeah,
your thing.
that's easier for me. So anyway, this is black. This is all black in here. So it would be black there. And then you have a little bit of black coming through here, except it's white. And it's a little dark down here, but that's basically how I see it. I don't know if that's how you want it, but that's what I can do with the tools right now.
So let me ask you then, what's the story then if we're looking at him being a black silhouette, right? And then if we squint our eyes, we realize that this becomes a dark object on a light background. And then obviously you have this thing over here. So it has that pattern. And then you have the light background. What just based off of that, what could you read into the image?
So he's documenting something. Looks like something to do with ships. He's writing something in a book. It comes from here. This is his inkwell. This pen goes up to his arm and it comes back up in here.
Cool. Do you think, I don't know for sure, but I'm wondering if if he's daydreaming or dreaming of being on a boat or being out to sea or doing something.
It could be dreaming. It could be reminiscing. He could be writing a story. Who knows? It's just. But I think if you look at his attire, he has a red band on his arms. And I think in those days, and he has that thing on his head. This guy's he's a clerical worker or an accountant or something.
Yeah.
And
he's stuck at a desk.
So probably he's daydreaming, right?
Yeah, that's what I would think. And then over here you have the little stamps, like he's doing accounting or something.
Paid pending. Or something.
What was that?
Paid pending.
Paid pending.
And, yes. Urgent, those sort of stamps.
Okay, I'm going to turn off I'm going to mute everybody except for the person that's going at the time because it's just a lot of noises. Mute. Okay, so let's go down here. Delisha, you're on the next on the roster. Here's one for you. Okay, so before drawing boxes and things like that, let's just have a conversation. Actually, you know what? Go ahead and draw your box. Like, first of all, what's the relationship between the foreground and the background?
It's a combination, I think, light background, then a dark background, and then with a little boy, a light background again. He's light on the dark car, and the occupants are dark on a light background. All right?
Okay. So would you say, let's see here.
The bottom one, the little girl is light on a dark background, and the others are all like neutral, I think.
Very cool. So when I'm looking at this, I'm seeing that the people that are closest to us would be light on a dark background, and the people who are far away would be dark on a light background.
Yeah.
At least in the top image. But now when they're coming home, um, it's almost like there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, the people who are closest to us are still the light on a dark background.
Yeah.
But the people who are away from us are dark on a dark background. Interesting. I do like the dad's expression where he's driving at the top. He's like, "Yeah, we're going," and he looks so beat up when he's coming home.
Had enough.
And I like how the mama or the mama-in-law has not changed at all. She's just grumpy the whole time.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Very cool. Very cool. All right, good job. Good job. Okay, who's up? Donna, you're next.
Hello, here I am. All right. Well, we have the light, important parts of the story against a darker background, essentially.
Yeah.
So, do you want me to draw it out?
No, I think we all see it.
Yeah, I think it's too complicated for that. But I mean, could you actually give us, because you do it so quickly, could you give us a notan of this? Because this is like one of the images that I thank you, that I pulled out and printed out for the Parker House image I'm working on.
So you have all of, ultimately what's going on here is you have this, everybody's coming out. You have that nice little arabesque that's running through, coming to him. Okay. She's divided over here in her own little space. And this is something Rockwell would often do. He's done that on a couple images where he's had maybe like a homecoming, the guy coming home from the military, and mama's going to come out and wrap her arms around him, or does, or whatnot. The community comes and supports him and surrounds him. And then off on the side, cut off to the side, is a woman, a young lady. So this isn't the first time he's done this one. This is he's done it before. Also, in these images, sometimes when you look at these Rockwell paintings, you'll see these things. Let's see here, where you see the stars with the little with the border around it. Yeah, and then you see one down here, and I guess back in the day they put those in the window to let people know that they had family in the military or off to war. So in a bunch of his paintings, you actually see those.
Oh, that's great.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hold on one second. All right. So, bam. I always like these. Well, let's see who's next. Oh, Ivy is next. Oh, Ivy. Where are thee?
I'm just taking it here.
So in a sentence, yeah, go on.
No, shall I draw or shall I just say where?
You can just say it.
Okay. So the girls, like, you know, the head, the hair, that is like, you know, white on dark, that combination, like white background and dark combination. The skirt, the bench, and the floor, these all are, you know, dark, but the socks is standing out. It's the white part on the dark. And there the two figures at the background, like that is again you know, dark figures on white background.
Yep. So we have dark figures on the white background for the parents and the principal.
Yes.
We have her head dark on a light background, and then we have the bottom of her.
The eye on the you know, lighter skin, the dark.
Exactly. So what we could do is say, oopsie, let's go ahead and do this. We have dark, light, dark. We could actually say probably all of this is dark down here. Okay. This is probably, you know, we could say all this is dark. Let's go ahead and say that this here is light. And then I like that she has a Band-Aid. And then obviously she has the two socks that are all messed up. And then you have mom and the principal. And they're behind this little. That's kind of what we're looking at then. Well, let me see something if I can make it a little clearer here. We'll just make all that light. It's really not important. So again, this is like really basic, but it's important to do it and understand it. I mean, when you're drawing and sketching it out, you're basically making this decision very, very quickly. Okay, so it's not a very complicated thing, but a lot of people don't think about it. And so what happens is when they're trying to communicate something, it all blurs together. Just like that little boy, his head was against a dark place. His white shirt was against the white of the guy, and his dark pants were against the dark background. And if you squint your eyes or you're looking at through the peripheral, then he doesn't exist. And so a lot of times artists, because they're not sensitive to the values, they never even think about this. They never think about that silhouette of how it's telling the story across a room. And you kind of have to have that. That's why I like, if you go to like these museums, you'll see like a dark painting and you'll see the guy in the painting, and then it's almost like 10% of the painting is maybe like that, and the rest of it's dark. And that's his face, you know, and it's like, okay. And then you might have, you know, his shirt or something coming down through here. And maybe if he's holding a very important paper, you know, he's Ben Franklin or something, he's holding the Constitution or whatever, right? That might be really the essence of the story that you're telling. And then everything else just supports it. It's important that it's there because it supports it, it gives context, but it's not important to really feeling the piece. Okay. All right. Now, I think in the future, I'm going to reverse this lesson with last week's lesson. I think this one probably is better to come before. Okay. All right. So this is a fun one. I like this one a lot. Let's see. Good job, Ivy. Oh, Jennifer.
Yes, sir.
It's time to pick on D.
Oh, right.
This is interesting because it's very similar to the one we just saw. Now, this is what is this? A light on dark, dark on light, a combination. What are we looking at here?
Well, I think I'm seeing more dark on light, but that's what I'm seeing.
Okay.
I'm seeing the hat and the umbrella, and then the man and his and her shoes and his hat on her lap. I'm trying to wonder, I'm sort of curious as what the significance would be of the black hat and umbrella in regard to the hat on her lap. Is that supposed to be some sort of meaning?
It's probably that she's the marriage counselor is a man.
Okay. All right.
But it's really not important because
Okay.
you squint your eyes, it all disappears. Okay?
All right. All right.
So primarily we're looking at this black silhouette of the man against the light background, correct?
Correct.
And then on her, she's holding his hat,
Yeah.
black hat, right?
Right.
Now, this is the brilliance of this story, just in analyzing the figures based on he's a dark figure on a light background. Is she a dark figure on a light background?
No, she's light on light.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Oh.
So when we see that in this scenario, what occurs? What starts to happen with our eyes? How do we feel when we see her versus him?
Well, she sort of fades out of sight. He's the dominant, and she's the submissive, unnoticed, quiet one.
And yet she's the one who gave him the black eye. And that's
right.
The humor of this is that visually she's in her role, in her place, she's submissive, she's pulled back, right? And yet who is really the dominant one?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, she beat his ass.
Why do you suppose that her shoes are black? Because she's not as diminutive and shy as we think.
I have black shoes. I'm not sure what other color you would put on her.
All right.
Couldn't it just be for balancing the lights and darks?
Sure.
Sure.
And DV.
Yes.
Before I forget, at some point I heard an instructor say something like images that were, I'm just going to throw it out, 45% X. It could be gray, it could be white, it could be black, are the strongest. Is there any kind of guidance you can give to us in terms of not having everything equal? That's just something for us to think about later, but maybe not now.
The guidance is very simple. It all depends on what your story is.
Okay.
Well, okay, go ahead.
Everything comes back to your story. That's why this is so brilliant, this piece. Because it is almost like a yin yang, he's dark, he has a light jacket over him, she's light, she has a dark thing over her waist, which is his hat. And it's just yin yang back and forth. And yet he's the dark dominant spot in the whole thing, and he's sitting with his little arms crossed like he's a little wussy or something. I don't know. He's about ready to have a temper tantrum. And but yet she's the dominant one in the image. And yet she, at the same time, she fades away, So it's interesting.
TV?
Yeah.
TV, I just wanted to mention, I think the red hair says a lot. It suggest a fiery temper, and it kind of seems to. Then I think also, if you don't mind me saying, jumping in, the red of the walls of the place show like this is where, you know, hostilities are worked out or something like that. It's like the war room.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe it's a nice little Italian-Irish couple. I find it interesting that he has all those art books in the back.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, Van Eyck, Gauguin, something about art.
But the woman's a little girl in the picture.
What was that?
The woman is a little girl from the other.
Exactly.
She grew up.
This says ish art. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's like Irish art or something. It's SH. I don't know. Okay, so I really like this image just because on the basis of the foreground to background relationship, it really does communicate a lot just in analyzing that alone.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why this is important to do. All right, good job there, Miss Jen. I'm going to mute you. Bing. And then we're going to call on Susan. You're on deck. All right. Now this one I did put a little gray up in the corner. So to help. Are you there, Susan?
Yes.
Okay, cool beans. So what's your analysis?
Well, the figures are dark on white with the behind the counter guy blending in a little bit because he's the observer. There's definitely a conversation happening between the police officer and the little boy who has his bag, which is again popping at the bottom.
Is it really popping?
It's popping some for me. Some. It's noticeable.
I would agree that it's noticeable because it has to be. But in terms of big masses of just like blocks, would that really be would that be, if you were going to break that into black and white, would you think that that would actually, like the floor would be white and that would be black, or could it all just be washed away as black?
Yeah, it probably could all be black, I guess.
Here's an interesting question. Rockwell could have made the server guy in the back, right, with any color shirt on. Any idea why he's in a white shirt?
Because he's a good guy.
That's true. I agree with your first comment about that he's kind of observing and he's kind of blended in the background. I believe that that's part of it. In a technical use, why is it important that he's wearing such a white light shirt? A white shirt that's so white that his cloth blends into it as well.
Well, that's so you can see the silhouettes of the faces.
Yeah, exactly. So if you look over here at the gray, you squint your eyes, that little boy's head is like a little black dot floating in white space. Let me see here. Let's say, because primarily all of this is white. And then right in the middle of all that white is this little black bling, blong, bling. Okay. Now over here you have this cop who takes up a lot of space, and he blends into the background there. So it's like this big, and then you have it weighed out a little bit here. You could probably even, like you were saying, bring that down there just to kind of weigh it out, so there's a balance to it. But a lot of this design is built around having that little boy's head pop. So that's where we would keep our focus in there. Cool. Very, very cool. Let me just bring this in here. And then obviously that little toaster thing, majiggy or radio or whatever's, oh, I guess that would make sense. Huh, that's kind of cool. Starting to look like a Mondrian painting, huh?
Yeah.
You know, I might actually agree with you on that. I'm thinking, once we pull all this out, I think I might. It's kind of cool. That's interesting. Let me just try something real quick here. Because now once we have this, and if we just cut these so that there's a little bit of a lean to it. You see how just by playing with the design a little bit, now you can easily start having very different emotions. So now there's a lean to it. Very cool. Good job. I also think by having the little boy's head at the top, black, surrounded in that sea of white, it leads us to feel that there's a conversation between the cop and the little boy, right? He's just not looking at the little boy. He's actually, you know, we're focused on the little boy's head. And so normally if that's the case, the image is wanting us to understand that there's a thinking that's going on. In this case, maybe communication. They're looking at each other, talking to each other, that kind of thing.
Is the little boy also a bit lost? His head sort of lost and floating?
Maybe. I don't get the impression that the little boy feels lost, like he's scared or anything. I get the impression, you know, that this is a choice that he made. I don't know if you guys ever did that. I remember, you know, when I was a kid, packing my bags and had a suitcase and I dragged it out, made it to I think I did it twice in my life where I ran away. And I remember once I ran away and I hid behind a tree by our house for like, I don't know, 4 hours or something. And then I got hungry and went home.
Yeah, DV, I packed my bags. I packed my bag filled with all this, my childhood jewelry, and I was going to make a little house across the street and have a table and sell jewelry to make a living across the street from the house.
How old were you?
I was about like 9, maybe. And awesome. 9, 10. And so then I put my suitcase, which had my name, Donna Lee, written on it, under my bed. Just, you know, I figured I would, you know, make my decision when I was ready. And then I forgot all about it. And my mother found the suitcase like 4 months later. And she said, what's this under your bed? And I was like, oh my gosh, I was going to run away. And I just denied it all.
Now it's all coming out.
Yes.
That's funny. Okay. I think we have one more after this. So let me see here. Yeah, we have one more after this. So Terry, and then everybody had a chance. Cool. So Terry, you let me know. Do you want to do this one or this one?
This one is easier.
This one? Okay, cool. So tell me what's going on.
No, the other one. Oh, it doesn't matter. It's let me just get my pen. So this is dark against, it's dark. Wait. Okay, so it's dark against the light, and light against the dark, and then dark against the light again. So it's a whole play of light against dark, and light against dark, and light. And there also it's the light face against the dark background. It's the light band, the darker face. So it's a whole play of light and dark, and dark and dark against light.
So
dark against light.
Let's all do this because that's brilliant that you saw all that. Let's have the rhythm that's going on there. So if we lean to the left, and then we lean to the right, and we lean to the left, and we lean to the right, it's the light in the dark, light on dark, light on dark, light on dark. I like that rhythm because these guys are in a waiting room, you know, and that rocking back and forth. It just, for me, it puts me in that state of like you're like a slight anxiety, like you don't know what's going to happen, you know. And I like that the guy in the back, he is a light on dark, even though the light of the wall is kind of more like a gray. So it's not a huge contrast, but it is a light on dark relationship. But then you have his bandage, which is very light, and it allows us to know what's his problem, you know. I like how he's holding his hat because he can't wear it right now. Not really sure what the boy's problem is, but the fact that the light and the dark is in his chest area, kind of that might actually give us a hint of what's going on in him.
Can I tell you what I think,
Sure.
TV? Well, I was wondering too. I think there was a car crash, and I think the little boy's mom or dad, but mom actually, because the man in the white has a wedding band on, and that's very clear. That could be the dad. Then the little boy is the son, and the mom is probably in the being seen by the doctor, and the guy with the dark hat who feels, you know, remorseful, or he looks, you know, he kind of looks like he is probably the guy in the other car. That's just my thinking.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very,
and then you can, and then of course the cigarettes. It's like the guy in the white was smoking cigarettes. Okay.
Well, the only issue with that I would have is that the little boy is scoot up next to the guy in the black, and if the guy in the black was in the other car that put his mom in the hospital, and the guy in the foreground is a father, then I think you'd be
excellent. So that could be his father. Okay, great.
So yeah, I mean, we'd probably have to go through the design a little bit more and look through it to find some more clues on what's going on here. But I do like it says silence, please, on the wall. That's interesting. Yeah, very, very cool. Now, Terry, just because you're so wonderful, and we do have one image left, so why don't you go ahead and finish it off?
Okay, yeah, this is very simple. It's the light and dark, dark, dark,
So overall, who's really the most important character in this image?
The dad.
Yeah. And so the dad's leading the kids into this happy birthday, his wife's birthday. I like how they do the wallpaper, how he did the wallpaper in the back. Very thin lines, very light lines, low valued lines. Okay. I like that. Just on a note, you have this really nice diagonal repeating through, which happens to be the same as the banister. Excuse me. But yeah, very simple. It's not a complicated thing. Now, it would be interesting if he put the guy's feet in dark slippers or dark pajamas, you know, but he didn't. He put him in a dark robe. I find it interesting how they're all like in the same angle. You can almost imagine, you know, from the pictures that we saw last week, how he put the books and stuff underneath their feet. You can like imagine those boards and those you know, just to hold them in place when they're modeling. It's kind of funny. And then you have that kind of marching, like they're marching. And then you have this neat little arabesque of the dog. You know, he's kind of like breaking the... And then you have these little figures down here. You know who this reminds me of, Donna? Remember our first image together?
Carl Larson.
The little guy? The little kid? In your painting?
Oh, that little boy in the painting. You're right.
Yeah.
Oh, Stevie, you've got a memory. Absolutely. Yep.
Let's see something here. I'm kind of curious just to, if we came down in a square, look at that. If we come down in a square, right? That's the design that we came up with for your image with the family of the kids. That the boy who was the leader boy, like the leader of the group, his body was inside the square, but his foot was stepping over, breaking out of that square. Like
That's right.
And then the little guy was very similar to this little girl here, where she, you know, I mean, and look what Rockwell did here. The same technique that we used primarily, where we used the shoreline to have him looking up and over. Rockwell's has the dominant horizontal running right through her eyes. Like she's
right, and also like she's laying back, but her eyes are looking like into the bedroom practically.
Exactly. She's ahead of everybody else because she's looking out there. And that's oh dang, that's beautiful. Wow. And then to switch this feel at the top, you have this charge in the background, right? Down here, you have these verticals, and then the diagonals come through the people. So you have this. It's just amazing. Oh, very, very cool. That's neat. I like when you design something, you solve a problem, and then all of a sudden you find, you know, a great master who solved the problem very similar in the way that you did.
Evie, why do you think it was so successful despite the fact that they're going towards the left and not like in the reverse? Like, what is your thoughts about that? I don't know if it makes a difference. I'm just asking.
Oh, it totally does. The reason why it works.
Like the angles are going in on the Baroque.
Yeah, well, because we started top right, top left, I mean. And so here we're being pulled across, and then we have that huge boom, that diagonal. So that's why we're being brought into here. And then as our arm moves through there, now we're being brought across. So that's probably also why we have a lot of these angles moving us up in this direction to keep our eye up and moving across towards the right. And then once we're in here, now they come through here, and then we're shooting us. He's shooting us down.
And do you think that by not having, I mean, I realize the cat is lower and darker, but do you think by keeping all the slippers light, it's keeping us in the upward emotionally even?
Yep. And then if we come down with look at that, if we come down with that square, boom, and that little girl is separate. She's pushed out of that space. So we say from this thing, when we see this rebated square, we're like, oh yeah, there they are. You know, they're a unit. And when we come in this one here, it's probably about right there. Now this kid is stepping out of it. If we came in, this is probably a root 2, because if you divide it right in half, it's probably there. And let's just add for kicks real quick the X in the box and see what that gives us. And I'm not doing this fully accurate, obviously. But we should be able to get a sense. Wow, look at that's cool, man. Oh wow, through the cat. Up through there, and then one more here. I mean, 2 more here. Here. Yeah, wow. Look at that tray. It's amazing. Bam. I've been at this thing for 25 years, and every single time I do it, I'm still amazed. It's just like, it's cool. Very, very cool. All right, guys. Well, let me give you your assignmente. Oh, we forgot this one. Oh, well. This is a really beautiful painting as well. Okay. So your assignment is to basically scribble on some images or do the little block or whatever, right? Just like very, very rough. I mean, honestly, it probably wouldn't take you more than 15, 20 minutes to bang this out. But post 25 images and determine the foreground, background silhouette, okay? And with that, I want you to be careful, Terry. I don't want you to necessarily find every little value shift, light, dark, light, dark, like this. I really want you to just think about what is like the primary huge masses of silhouette. Okay. And inside of there, you might find 1 or 2 small ones that really contribute to the story. For example, the dark hair of the girl with the black eye, you know, that was very obvious that the hair was dark on a light background. Her face was light. The black eye was dark. And so there was that, but primarily everything else for the most part was very, big spaces. Okay. And then what I want you to do is take 5 of those images that you did, and in a sentence or 2, just write out what you think the story is. Okay. And then of course do your 60, 90-second video. Then we'll meet on Thursday, probably for about 20 or 30 minutes. Okay. And then I'll wish you guys well, and we'll move on to the next thing. All right. So on
Thank you. That was a great class.
it was a short one. All right, guys, have a good time. I'll see you.
Okay. See you at
Bye-bye.
9.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Night.
Bye.
Night, Terry.
Thank you. See you at 9, Victor. See you at 3, whatever, 6,
Yeah, whenever it is, and
later.
3 hours from now.
All
All right, bye.
Thank you.